October 2024, East China Sea. Two shadows cut through hostile airspace at 40,000 feet. F-22 Raptors. Invisible, untouchable. The most advanced stealth fighters ever built, doing what they've done for 20 years, operating where enemy radar sees absolutely nothing. Then the impossible happened. A J-16 pilot named Li Chao detected them both. Not one, both, simultaneously locked. His radar painted targets where American doctrine said nothing should appear, and within seconds, he rolled inverted and positioned his aircraft 10 meters above one of the Raptors, upside down, close enough to see the rivets. One F-22 broke away at supersonic speed. Stealth wasn't supposed to fail like this. For 30 years, invisibility defined air superiority, and the F-22 was the ultimate predator. But on that day over the East China Sea, the predator became prey, and over 350 Chinese pilots now fly the aircraft that's changed the equation forever. This is how China built a fighter jet that hunts stealth aircraft. And this is the story of the J-16, the weapon that rewrote the rules of modern air combat. To understand how we got here, rewind to the 1990s when China's Air Force faced a crisis. Their JH-7 fighters were aging into obsolescence, and replacement options were limited. So they did what they'd always done. Bought from Russia. Sukhoi Su-27s, Su-30 MKKS, twin-engine beasts that could match anything the West fielded. By 1996, China struck a licensing deal to produce the Su-27 domestically as the J-11A, and for a moment, it looked like another copy-paste operation. But then something shifted. The Chinese didn't stop at replication. They tore apart the design, upgraded to the twin-seat J-11BS variant, and rebuilt the entire electronic architecture from the ground up using indigenous technology. Development on what would become the J-16 started quietly in the mid-2000s, hidden from international observers, until October 17, 2011, when the first prototype lifted off from Shenyang. When China unveiled the fighter in early 2013, military analysts expected a Russian clone with Chinese markings. What they got instead was something fundamentally different. By April 2014, the People's Liberation Army Air Force received its first operational J-16 regiment, and by August, production aircraft started flooding into active squadrons. July 2017, the PLA's 90th anniversary parade. For the first time, international observers saw the J-16 in full display, and the message was unmistakable. This wasn't a copy anymore. This was a weapon designed for a future air war, where stealth advantage wouldn't save you. 72 feet of metal, composite, and fury. The J-16 is a twin-seat, twin-engine multi-role strike fighter with a 48-foot wingspan that delivers aerodynamic stability even in the most aggressive combat maneuvers. Two Shenyang WS-10 Taihang turbofan engines power the beast, each producing 29,000 pounds of thrust when afterburners ignite. That's 58,000 pounds of raw power, pushing the airframe forward. And the numbers tell you everything you need to know about what this aircraft can do. Top speed? Mach 2.0 to 2.2. That translates to roughly 1,320 miles per hour, fast enough to dictate engagement terms in any dogfight scenario. Operationally, the J-16 cruises for 3,000 kilometers on internal fuel alone, or 4,000 kilometers with external tanks strapped on. That range means it can defend an entire theater without needing mid-air refueling, which matters enormously when you are protecting coastline from Taiwan to the South China Sea. Service ceiling, 20,000 meters. That's above 65,000 feet, high enough to dominate the vertical battlefield and force enemies to fight where altitude advantage belongs to China. 12 hardpoints, 12,000 kilograms of ordnance. That payload equals 2 fully loaded pickup trucks worth of weapons hanging under the wings, and it speaks to the sheer combat load this airframe was engineered to handle. Large strake wing body integration and conventional twin vertical tail layout with clipped tip fins deliver the aerodynamic efficiency that designers were targeting. Performance-wise, it compares directly to the American F-15E Strike Eagle, one of the most proven strike fighters ever built. But unlike those early J-11s that depended on Russian engines and Russian supply chains, the J-16 uses the indigenous Taihang turbofan. China doesn't need permission from Moscow every time production resumes. They control the entire manufacturing pipeline. That independence changes the strategic calculus permanently. Here's the question China couldn't ignore. How do you shoot down an aircraft you cannot see? Stealth technology dominated air combat thinking for 30 years. The F-22 Raptor and F-35 Lightning were engineered specifically to be invisible to traditional radar systems, and American pilots trained under the assumption that they could penetrate hostile airspace while enemy radar operators saw nothing but empty sky. Stealth wasn't just an advantage. It was supposed to be definitive. China started thinking about this problem differently, and that shift changed everything. Instead of trying to build stealth jets to match American capabilities, they engineered a jet designed specifically to find stealth jets. What they figured out was that the solution wasn't one better radar. It was a completely different approach to air defense. The J-16 carries an indigenous AESA radar, with approximately 1,200 transmit-receive modules working together. And this system can detect fighter-sized targets out to 200 to 250 kilometers away. Against stealth targets approaching head-on, detection range drops to 25 to 30 nautical miles, and it can simultaneously track between 15 and 20 separate air targets. That's the conventional radar picture. Then you add the infrared search and track system, and the equation changes entirely. The IRST operates passively and can detect targets at 50 to 80 kilometers without sending out any signal that an electronic warfare system could jam. Stealth aircraft use electronic countermeasures to break radar locks, but you can't jam a system that isn't radiating anything. It's just watching, listening, and this is where it gets truly dangerous. China understood something critical. Stealth technology has real vulnerabilities when facing distributed networks instead of single radar sites. Low-frequency radars operating in the VHF and UHF bands have terrible resolution and can't precisely track anything, but the physics work in their favor. These radars detect the anomalies that stealth aircraft create when they move through electromagnetic space. Something appears where nothing should exist. Once one of these long-range low-frequency networks detects that anomaly, the information flows to the J-16, and the J-16's more precise radar takes over from there. All the data fuses together, and suddenly that stealth advantage disappears entirely. China didn't build a better radar, they built a better system. All the sensors, ground-based radars, naval radars, airborne radars on J-16s, communicate on the same digital language and fuse data in milliseconds. What one sees, all see. This network approach effectively neutralizes the stealth advantage that American fighters have relied on for a generation. If you believe the J-16 is the future of air dominance, type Hunter in the comments below. The J-16's teeth are as impressive as its sensors, starting with the PL-15, the primary beyond visual range air-to-air missile. This weapon reaches out to 200 to 300 kilometers, travels at Mach 4 to 5 speeds, and uses an AESA radar seeker combined with inertial navigation and mid-course data link guidance to hit its targets. A dual-pulse solid-fuel rocket motor powers the missile, which gives targets very little reaction time when it launches. At Mach 4 speed, a target has roughly 5 to 7 minutes of warning before the missile arrives, and that's assuming pilots even detect the launch happening. The J-16 also carries the PL-12 medium-range missile and the PL-10 short-range missile, giving pilots a complete spectrum of air combat options for every distance bracket. But the J-16 is more than an air-to-air platform. It functions as a strike fighter with multiple ground attack roles. The airframe can carry YJ-83 anti-ship missiles, YJ-62 anti-ship missiles for naval strike missions, laser-guided bombs, precision-guided munitions, various rockets, and a 30mm cannon for close-range engagements. With 12,000 kilograms of payload capacity spread across those 12 hardpoints, the jet can handle almost any mission the Chinese Air Force needs to execute. This flexibility matters enormously because the J-16 isn't a single mission aircraft locked into one role. It can patrol for air defense one day, conduct ground attack the next, and perform anti-ship strike after that. That kind of versatility makes it invaluable for an air force that needs to cover a massive geographic region with limited resources. Let's simulate what happens when stealth meets the J-16 network in contested airspace. Hour 0. The approach. 2 F-35s launch from Japanese bases, flying south toward the Taiwan Strait under cover of electronic warfare jamming and stealth technology. Their mission: reconnaissance and deterrence. Radar operators on the ground see nothing. Traditional air defense systems remain blind. Hour 0 plus 12 minutes. The anomaly. A VHF radar station on the Chinese coast detects an anomaly. Not a precise track, but a disturbance in the electromagnetic field where nothing should exist. The data flows instantly to the integrated air defense network. 4J-16 scrambles from coastal air bases, climbing to 50,000 feet within 6 minutes. Hour 0 plus 18 minutes. The lock. The lead J-16 pilot activates his IRST system. Passive. Silent. Watching. At 65 kilometers, the infrared signature of the F-35's engine exhaust blooms on his display. 2 heat sources moving at 450 knots. The AESA radar narrows its beam, and at 30 nautical miles, both stealth fighters appear on his screen. Simultaneous lock. The F-35 pilots receive threat warnings. Hour 0 plus 20 minutes. The engagement. The J-16 fires 2 PL-15 missiles. Mach 4.5. The F-35s break formation, deploy countermeasures, and dive toward the ocean to break lock. But the missile's AESA seekers adjust mid-flight, guided by data link updates from the J-16 network. One F-35 evades successfully. The other doesn't. Hour 0 plus 25 minutes. The message. The surviving F-35 retreats at supersonic speed. The mission is aborted. And in command centers across the Pacific, the realization sets in. Stealth is no longer invincible in this theater. When China flew the first J-16D prototype in December 2015, they created an electronic warfare variant designed for an entirely different mission. This version removed the internal cannon and the IRST system, replacing both with sophisticated electronic warfare equipment designed to blind enemy air defenses. Multiple jamming pods hang under the wings, and the aircraft carries digital receiver arrays and radar homing sensors that detect exactly where threats are coming from. When the J-16D enters a combat zone, its job involves making enemy air defenses blind by detecting, categorizing, and geolocating those radar sites. It can jam multiple emitters simultaneously, which means it suppresses enemy air defenses by identifying where radar installations sit before guiding anti-radiation missiles to destroy them. Electronic intelligence collection happens at the same time, and the aircraft potentially gathers communications intelligence or triggers cyber attacks against air defense and communication systems. This is suppression of enemy air defenses in the modern era, and what it enables is straightforward. The J-16D finds the defenses, jams them, and destroys them before anyone can respond effectively. By the time enemy fighters could theoretically engage, the strike package has already dropped ordnance and is heading home. Combat training for J-16D pilots started in 2021, and that variant filled a weapons gap China's Air Force desperately needed to address. By August 2024, China had produced over 350 J-16 fighters across 13 separate production batches, making this the most widely deployed heavyweight fighter of any single Air Force globally since the early 2000s. Production continues to accelerate, and at least 15 brigades are equipped with J-16s across the country, with deployments that include units guarding the Shenzhen and Hong Kong regions specifically. In June 2025, CCTV released footage showing 2 J-16s intercepting foreign military aircraft in Chinese territorial airspace, using radio warnings and deploying flares to signal their position. This fighter isn't in development stages anymore. It's integrated into operational squadrons right now, training the next generation of Chinese pilots, and actively defending Chinese airspace on a daily basis. The J-16 represents a fundamental shift in air power philosophy. It's not about building stealth jets to compete with American stealth jets. It's about building a system that neutralizes stealth advantage through distributed networks, advanced radar, and comprehensive sensors working together as one organism. Stealth technology was the defining factor in air superiority for 30 years, and the J-16 suggests that era might be ending. That changes everything about how modern air forces need to think about combat in the next decade and beyond. Next, inside the NGAD program, and the American answer to China's stealth hunters.